Okay, well, hi everyone. Thank you for joining me for Library Link's virtual indie book club buzz. I'm so excited to have you guys here with us to join us to talk about our upcoming favorite books from the spring and summer. And we have Catapult, Astra House, Kensington, and Soho here to present and share their enthusiasm for their books. And at the end, we are giving away two prize packs of books to selected library staff here. So very excited about that. So first we will have Rachel from Catapult joining us, and she can share more about her books and herself. So Rachel, do you want to get started?
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. So I am Rachel. I'm an associate publisher at Catapult, Counterpoint, and Soft Skull Press. And I just have an array of spring and summer books I want to share with you. I have more to say about some than others, but any that you want galleys of, or DRCs, or reading group guides, or information, absolutely shoot me an email. I will drop my email in the chat. So the first book I want to tell you about, yeah, is Pieces You'll Never Get Back. This is an incredible memoir by Samina Ali, um, who is a mother, a writer. She was pregnant with her first child, and she could tell that something wasn't right. And she kept asking her doctors to figure out what was wrong. And they kind of minimized it, and they told her she was overthinking it and that nothing was wrong, and that all first time mothers feel this way. And of course, something was terribly wrong. And she had a series of strokes in childbirth and went unconscious. And when she came back 5 days later, she did not remember she had had a child. She did not remember her husband. She did not remember anything. And they basically told her that she would never recover. And she wanted to. And she worked with neurologists, and they told her basically that she has to think of her brain like a jigsaw puzzle, and some pieces would come sooner and some pieces would come later, and there would be some pieces she'd never get back. So that's where the title comes from. And it's really a memoir of putting those pieces back together. And it's so fascinating because she has her husband telling her, here's who you are, here's what you care about, here's why you love me so much. She has her mother saying, here's who you are, you're a good Muslim woman, you're very devout. She has her own writings telling her who she used to be that she doesn't remember writing. And so she starts to write again, and that's really what helps her put it all back together. And what I love so much about this book is that in some ways, the things that happened to her are incredibly rare. She's considered like a medical miracle. And in other ways, it's so relatable. I don't feel like the same person I was before I had a baby. And like, we're all kind of trying to construct who we are based on all the things we know about ourselves and all the things that other people perceive us to be. So this is a really interesting exploration of all of that. And I hope you'll check it out. Next up. On Breathing by Jameson Webster. This is a really cool book. It is nonfiction, and it is kind of literally about breathing, from taking your first breath. It is about COVID. It is about sort of collective care and morality. It is about the air we all share. She is a psychotherapist, and she comes at this story from so many different perspectives. And she's also done some really fascinating events with other writers, artists, musicians, dance pieces. She's really focused on sort of the different ways that breath connects us all and the things that we care about. Next up, Passing Through a Prairie Country by Dennis Staples. He had a book called This Town Sleeps a few years ago. He is a queer Indigenous writer, and this is his take on horror, ghost story, the darkness beneath. It takes place in a casino, which is, of course, a place full of ghosts and darkness. In this case, made literal. It is very spooky. Check it out. Next up, The Lilac People. This book means so much to me. I hope some of you might have heard about it already. This is in many ways historical fiction, World War II, someone's back walking through a field. You might recognize it. You might know which readers of yours it's for. But this is specifically about the queer and trans history of World War II, which has been so underexplored. I learned so much. It is fiction, but it is deeply researched. And if you check out Milo's website, he has photos and archival documents and music all from this time period that really brings it to life. I really recommend this one for all of your book clubs. The story starts in the 30s in Weimar, Berlin. There's a thriving queer culture. People are hanging out at the El Dorado Club. They're making music. They're dressing up. There's the institute where you can go and you can be parts of like sexuality research. And there are people getting like trans passports that allow them to cross dress. And so it's a very progressive time in a lot of ways. And then we all know what happens next. And there's a part in the middle of the book that is so devastating to read as the news hits kind of day after day. It's a little familiar and terrifying. But Birdie, our protagonist in this story, kind of escapes the war by going to live in a farmhouse with his girlfriend. And they lay low and they care for the fields and the animals. And then years later, the war is ending. And they meet a young trans boy who has escaped from the camps and doesn't know where to go. And it turns out that as the Allied forces are liberating a lot of other people, they are sending queer prisoners back to prison. So now our characters are fleeing the very people who are supposed to be liberating them. And ironically, the best place for them to get to is America. So then you have this kind of adventure historical fiction story. They're like running for the boat, and they're falsifying documents, and they're like bartering for the things that they need, and they're trying to protect each other, and they're trying to survive this boat ride to America. So it's this wonderful combination of super important queer history and super readable historical fiction debut novel. It's a really special book, and I really hope that you will be able to help me share it with your patrons. The Words of Dr. L by Karen E. Bender is a story collection. She is a very literary writer. She's a National Book Award finalist, but this book is her speculative stories through sort of a variety of near future dystopias and worlds like ours, but not like ours. There's a story about, the earth is running out of water and the elites are leaving and what's going to happen to everybody else. There's the title story is about what if there are words that you could say that would end a pregnancy, and who would be the keeper of those words, and how would you get them, and how could you show that you needed them, and how would you know who to trust? Very timely, very moving. There's also a story where a couple comes home and discovers that there's like a child in their house that's theirs that they just kind of forgot to raise, which I feel like is plucked directly from my personal nightmares. So it's a really fascinating set of stories, and I hope you'll check it out. She's a wonderful writer. Next up, Green Gold. This is kind of quirky nonfiction, like the books about salt and rats and other hyper-specific things. But the journey of the avocado from a sort of not that common food in America to like the symbol of millennial trendiness is totally fascinating. And it's a story of marketing, and it's a story of agriculture, and it's a story of American culture, and it's full of fascinating characters and delicious recipes. So check it out. Songs of No Provenance is Liddy Conklin's debut novel, but they wrote a story collection called Rainbow Rainbow a few years ago that I know a lot of librarians were passionate about. This is the story of a cult songwriter who's always kind of on the verge of fame, but never quite gets there. And she's doing a performance in East Village, and she kind of loses it, and she does something shocking. And I'm not going to tell you what it was. But when I was pitching this to a bunch of booksellers at a conference, one of them went, "Oh yeah, I read that. That was weird." So if that sounds like an endorsement to you. So she leaves the city, and she needs to get away from all this drama because, of course, it has hit the internet and everyone has an opinion. And she ends up teaching at a writing camp for teenagers and falling for another one of the teachers there and sort of rebuilding herself. And what I love about this book is it's a very weird premise, but at the same time, what it's really about is like, how much do we want to be perceived? And what if you're an artist in this world? Do you have privacy? Do you have the option of privacy? Or if you want a fan base, are you asking people to be invested in you and who you are? And how does identity making for a public audience and identity making for yourself kind of butt up against each other? And how can you be an artist in a world that's all about fame? So a lot of like really fascinating questions in this one, and also weird. The Exhibitionist is a really cool book. It is an art book. It's really beautiful, but it's very personal. Peter Mendelsohn is a book cover designer and an artist and designer. If you like Google his name, you'll see covers that you recognize that he's created. But he had a really difficult personal time during the pandemic, as many of us did. And he started painting, and he kind of like art created his way out of this devastating depression. And he is also sort of engaging with his family history and stuff that he has not really faced before through the power of art. So it's really, really beautiful to see. And I hope you get a chance to look at this one in person. I feel like the screen just doesn't do it justice. Next up, The Tilting House. This is a great book club book. This is a family story, a saga spanning nations and decades. And at the center is these two estranged sisters, and one stayed in Cuba and one came to the US, and they both have very different perspectives on their family, their culture, what happened to them, and whether they can ever reconcile those things. I love this cover too. And we'll get you guys a reading group guide and stuff. There's a ton to discuss here. And Yvonne is fabulous and really interested in like zooming into book clubs, answering questions, anything you want. Next up, sorry, I'm running out of time. Hollow Spaces. This is such a cool book. This is coming in August. This is like also very much a family story, but from a like courtroom thriller kind of lens. So this is about the only Asian American partner at a big law firm. He's sort of clawed his way up the corporate ladder, finally hit the top, and then he's accused of murder. And that's one timeline. And then decades later, his children are trying to figure out what really happened. He was acquitted, but should he have been? And one of the children thinks that he didn't do it, and one of the children thinks he totally did. And they're kind of trying to re-reconcile everything that shaped their lives. And so it's like very like thrillery, presumed innocent, prestige TV, but it's about these questions like, what is the truth and how well do we know our families? And like, are we ever really sure what other people are capable of? So it's got that really like deep discussable side as well. Do I have one more? Oh, I have two more. I'll go so fast. Okay. Resting Bitch Face is poetry. It is beautiful, but also like entertaining and pop cultural. Taylor Bias wrote I Done Click My Heels 3 Times, which is a poetry collection that sort of revolved around The Wiz. So she's definitely got like a film and art lens. She's brilliant. Check it out. And the last one, this is just a little bonus coming this fall, is the new Joan Silber. She wrote Secrets of Happiness. I know she has a lot of fans in the library world, and her books almost always have a variety of perspectives around like one single event. And in this case, it's a couple of friends. It's the 70s in New York City. It's gritty. They're doing drugs. Something bad happens. One friend rushes another friend to the emergency room and then panics and leaves him there. And this one moment shapes all of their lives and the lives of people who were there that night who don't even know about what went on that night. And so it kind of spins out in all directions and comes together in the end in a way you didn't see coming, but was exactly how it had to happen. She's just a wonderful writer, and she's great for book clubs. 11:15. Thank you all so much for your time. I'll drop my email in the chat as well. I would love to send you galleys or anything else you need. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. I appreciate how you say it's .co, not .com. So I think that's always my mistake when emailing you. But please feel free to email Rachel with any galleys, questions. She's always happy to help.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Tiffany Gonzalez from Astra House. We'll talk more about Astra's upcoming titles, and you need to have these on your radars. So, Tiffany, do you want to go ahead and get started?
Yeah, thank you, Stephanie. I'll just jump right into it. Hi, everyone. I'm Tiffany Gonzalez, Senior Marketing Manager at Astra House, and I'm so excited to be here today to tell you about some of the brilliant, bold, boundary-pushing books we are publishing as we celebrate our 5-year anniversary. We're also so grateful to you librarians for all that you do to bring great literature into the lives of readers. We know libraries are facing difficult times with budget cuts and book ban efforts across the country, and we want to recognize your dedication and bravery on the front lines of these cultural battles for open access and knowledge sharing. So thank you for all you do. Next slide, please. Are You Happy is a collection of stories by Lori Osland, a writer widely admired by other writers. The collection has received star reviews from Publishers Weekly and Kirkus, who've dubbed her a master of the form. Each story feels like a novel itself. They are deeply satisfying and moving portraits of interior lives. They definitely have that slice of life quality that you get from Lucia Berlin's work. The stories are set in Minnesota and New Mexico and California. Most of the main characters are gay, but they are often older and looking back on their youth and know how they navigated their close-knit identity, and also how they navigated their narrow-minded families now that they're grown and have built their own lives, yet still feel this pull and responsibility to from the place they came from. There's almost a vintage feel to the stories, but the themes are absolutely current. They're reminiscent of Flannery O'Connor's work, as well as the filmmaker Kelly Reichardt. We feel very confident that this book will be nominated for prizes. The last piece, which is really a novella called Just Another Family, was selected for the 2024 Best American Short Stories by Lauren Groff. And I should also say that this book is laugh out loud funny. Lori's narrators are so eye-sharp and sharp-tongued. While the stories are often sad, they have these incredible moments of levity and absurdity that create a necessary balance, which so many readers are seeking these days. Next slide, please. I Deliver Parcels in Beijing by Huan Yang became a runaway bestseller in China in 2023. Since then, it has sold in 15 plus countries. Translated by Jack Hargreaves, I Deliver Parcels in Beijing is definitely a delightfully honest and humorous account about a worker doing odd jobs in various anonymous megacities. For readers and watchers of No Man Land by Jessica Bruder, as well as readers of Nickel and Dime by Barbara Ann Reinchard, Huan Yan started posting essays about his experiences online during COVID lockdowns. His recollection of night shifts in a huge logistics center in the south of China went viral. Nights so hot that even drinking 3 liters of water does not require a toilet break, colleagues going for karaoke instead of trying to get a few hours of sleep. Where are the affordable rooms with proper air conditioning, and what is the best amount of alcohol in order to sleep but not feel drowsy a few hours later? The work is brutal, and there's no real sense of future in sight, but Huan Yan is armed with a deadpan sense of humor and a strong idea of self. He moves on when he feels stuck, from logistics in the south to delivering parcels in Beijing, over to other odd jobs, all while also discovering the power of reading and writing. The book speaks deeply to the disillusioned youth unwilling to join the rat race of career and status, who are looking for a space for themselves, especially in these times of great insecurity and global questioning of how it is that we really want to live our lives. Huan Yang gives a face and voice to the silent majority and those who feel at odds with ever-growing pressure to perform and succeed. Next slide, please. Front Street, Resistance and Rebirth in the Tent Cities of Techlandia by award-winning journalist Brian Barth is an immersive work that follows residents of 3 distinct camps: Crash Zone in San Jose, Wood Street in Oakland, and Wolf Camp in Cupertino. Brian Barth moved to the Bay Area and spent the last 5 years embarking on an incredibly urgent and generous ethnographic and journalistic project from where Front Street came to be. In this wide-reaching portrait of the constellation of people living in tents, shacks, and cars in the shadow of tech campuses and skyscrapers, Brian Barth introduces us to misfits, activists, and iconoclasts of Silicon Valley's homeless encampments. Blending memoir, investigative reporting, history, and cultural criticism to paint a portrait of a community searching for dignity and connection in the midst of a national crisis, Front Street is a conversation-changing story about the struggle for housing. Front Street considers the root causes and possible solutions to chronic homelessness, contemplating political, economical, social, and spiritual approaches alike. With empathy and poise, Barth follows the cast of characters describing their personal stories, quotidian experiences, private philosophies, and political activism. In doing so, Front Street explains why the country's current approach to homelessness has become at once cruel and ineffective, and makes the radical argument that encampments, when targeted generously and fair, have something important to teach the rest of us about autonomy, dignity, connection, and care. Barth's book will appeal to a huge range of readers, from folks with only a passing interest in the housing crisis, to policy experts, to those interested in theories of communal anarchism, mutual aid, and liberation at those of off-living the grid. You can say that Front Street is in conversation with recent award winners and critical darlings like Matthew Desmond's Evicted in Poverty by America, and also character-driven achievements like The Invisible Child. But Front Street is also a vignette of an industry and geography that has peripheralized, criminalized, and scapegoated the most precarious members of its community. Like Uncanny Valley or Malcolm Harris's Palo Alto, Barth really anatomizes the stark ethical ironies of Silicon Valley and asks how an industry so obsessed with optimization and building a better and healthier future can also relegate its neighbors to such medieval conditions. Next slide, please. Another bone-swapping event is Brad Fox's follow-up to the Bathysphere book. And if you want to read a book that will help you escape this place and this moment, this is that book. Brad's book is a deeply personal and emotional and true story that begins with Brad traveling to Peru at the dawn of the pandemic with his partner Esther, after a series of fertility treatments that leave them both desperate and despondent. Suddenly, we're in Peru, deep in the jungle, with a curandero, a guide called Miguel, and we witness Brad go through a series of ceremonies while the world falls apart. What was meant as a 10-day trip, the simplest sort of shamanic tourism, as Brad writes, with suspicion turns into a 14-month stay in Peru, forcing Brad to reckon with his partner, his own humanity, and his and our relationship to the physical and spiritual world. What Brad achieved here is such a deeply human crying out that's so honest and true that you just have to read it for yourself. Brad becomes our guide to the possibility of real healing. I mean, this guy looked into the mirror of death, for goodness sake. And for those of us with tremendous doubt, like me, we couldn't ask for a better guide. Next slide, please. Underspin by E.Y. Shao opens up with a funeral of a very young Ryan Cho, a typical Chinese-American teenager living in the Bay Area, who has died under mysterious circumstances. As the story progresses, we realize that Ryan's lifelong coach, Kristen, is missing from the crowd of mourners. And so what follows is a portrait of Ryan and his relationship with this incredibly formidable and obsessive German coach, and the details of the demise of his career, as seen through the eyes of those pulled into Ryan's orbit, his teammates, rivals, investors, trainees, and love interests. In crisp, evocative prose, Underspin is an intimate, rich, and bruising coming-of-age novel that masterfully delves beneath the relentless pressure that forges a champion, considering adolescence, estrangement, and the great injustices committed within our closest relationships. A love letter to an underdog sports circuit and a tender exploration of love, loss, and abuse, Underspin is a literary puzzle with a tragic mystery at the center for readers of Rita Bullwinkle, Hua Suo, Susan Choi, and Brandon Taylor. Next slide, please. Happy Bad is an absolutely brilliant novel set in the near future in the US, beginning in East Texas in a dusty, economically depressed town that has been ravaged by climate change. It's very much a voice-driven novel from the perspective of Beatrice, who is in her early 30s and working at Twinbridge, which is a very rundown facility for troubled and often neglected and abused teenage girls. You definitely get Girl Interrupted vibes in the opening of the novel. Beatrice herself is not so different from her charges. She has many troubles of her own, and yet, for some reason, she's in a position of power. But she cares for those girls and wants the best for them and for their future. So when Twinbridge is offered the opportunity by a pharmaceutical company to trial a new drug called B-Zen on the girls, they agree. So basically, they're pseudo-sedating these girls, and while Beatrice knows it's kind of messed up, she's motivated to produce positive results for the company, who has promised a shiny new facility in Atlanta for Twinbridge and the residents if all goes well with B-Zen. All does not go well, for lots of reasons for the residents and employees of Twinbridge. The big one being a catastrophic blackout that requires evacuation and results in a highly chaotic road trip through the American South headed to Atlanta. Do they get there? You got to read it to find out. But really, you'll want to read this book for the ways in which Delaney Nolan and Beatrice find hope and deep, meaningful human connection in very dark circumstances. This is a book about found family, community, and survival. It's powerful and moving and incredibly funny. Next and last title, Solitaria, tells a story of two Black women, Eunice and Mabel, a mother and daughter living in an unspecified Brazilian city where Eunice works as a criminally underpaid live-in maid for a wealthy family in a high-end apartment complex. As the two women take turns recounting their lives in a community of domestic service workers and their often cruel employers, a portrait of a shocking crime emerges, raising questions of complicity, loyalty, power, and care in colonialism's long shadow. We have a lovely blurb from Diane Brand, who notes that the novel's rare alchemy and thoughtfully highlights its clever architectural conceit. We also have another amazing blurb from Saidiya Hartman, a scholar of Black studies and one of the most highly acclaimed public intellectuals of our time, whose work has meant a great deal for both of us. Hartman calls Solitaria a gem, and we could not agree more. This brilliant novel in translation will appeal to readers of Elena Ferrante, Fernanda Melchor, Arundhati Roy, Shinamanda Ngozi Adichie, and Christina Sharp. It's a mystery, a ticket to Brazil, and a human post-colonial novel focused on race and class. Review copies of all these books are available on NetGalley and at Edelweiss, which I will share the catalog link in a second. And we hope you'll read and love and recommend to them to your colleagues and patrons. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact me and email me. So thank you so much. I'm gonna put some stuff in the chat and I'll pass it on.
Great, thanks, Tiffany. And I'm just leaving her contact information up for 1 sec in case anyone wants to write it down, and I will share contact information with everyone afterwards. That last book looks amazing, Tiffany. So I'm adding stuff to my reading list as you were talking to.
I totally want Happy Bad.
That looks amazing.
Yes.
So many good ones. I mean, both of the presentations so far have been like
Yes.
envy inducing.
Yes, completely agree. Okay, and next we have Vita and Larissa from Kensington. I'm so excited for your books as well, too.
Great. Thank you all for joining us. We always love being able to meet with and chat with librarians. And as everyone else has said, especially now, it's just really nice to have this kind of moment of light in a very chaotic and dark time. We're from Kensington. My name is Vita. I oversee our marketing and publicity department, and Larissa is here too.
Hi, I'm Larissa. I'm the Associate Director of Indie Bookstore and Library Marketing. This is a newer position for me, so I'm not used to saying these words. I used to be our cozy queen, as everyone called me. I didn't come up with the name myself. And so I'm in a bit of a transitional role, but now you can contact me about all things library marketing related. If you want any ARCs or need Edelweiss requests, if you need to be whitelisted on Edelweiss or NetGalley, just reach out to me. We have a newsletter specifically just for librarians called Branching Out, and our April 2025 newsletter is going to be going out next week because we finally have ARCs for Ellen Marie Wiseman's The Lies They Told, which I know everyone's been raring to get, and Charlie Donnelly's Guess Again. They're finally in, so I'll be sending those out next week, or the newsletter out next week, and so the ARC requests will be coming in the next couple weeks for anyone that wants those books.
And we'll jump into our first title. So first we have, this book comes out at the end of the month, When the Tides Held the Moon by Vanessa Vita Kelly, who, aside from having an amazing middle name, is a renowned New Yorkan illustrator. She's designed covers for a lot of authors like TJ Klune and Alexis Hall and Casey McQuiston. So some of you may recognize her style here. This is her debut novel. It's a beautifully illustrated found family journey of self-discovery about queer, cozy, historical romantasy. I got to get those buzzwords, historical romantasy in, about a young Puerto Rican immigrant who, in the turn of the century in New York, goes on a journey of love and self-discovery after he captures a merman from a merman for a Coney Island sideshow act. So as I mentioned, it's a gorgeous book, beautifully illustrated throughout. Oh wait, I have some pictures. There we go. Some photos taken of the book itself. And beyond that, it's just a book that everyone is the kind of story that everyone's looking for right now. Historical cozy fantasy, a slow burn, kind of monster romance with a merman, diverse representation with queer, BIPOC characters, immigrants, varied backgrounds, all unfolding against this great Coney Island early 1900s backdrop. We just got a wonderful start review from Library Journal, start review from Booklist, some fabulous early buzz. This author is coming up to the area in May in the New York City, New Jersey area. She lives down in Maryland. So if anyone wants to set up any last minute events with her, just give us a shout. They're amazing. Okay, our next book, something a little different. So Lee Carson, first of all, Jack Ford is Emmy and Peabody award-winning journalist. Some of you may recognize him. He has been a legal correspondent on NBC, Good Morning America for a long time, The Today Show for a while. He is a Yale professor, a wonderful speaker who has like a great sense of the story, and a fellow journalist who learned about this amazing woman named Lee Carson, who is definitely an unsung hero. During World War II, she literally went where no one has gone before. She was, there are so many firsts, you know, she was the first to go behind enemy lines, the first to enter liberated concentration camps. She's this amazing journalist that nobody knows about now. Everyone is kind of, you know, she's just lost to obscurity and history, like so many fabulous women are. And this book is different from your normal biographical historical fiction novel because it blends biographical historical fiction and the very deeply researched truth of this woman with a little bit of kind of like speculative, maybe alternate history and some Cold War thriller in there as well. What is the very little that is known of Lee Carson is that, you know, after having this amazing career during World War II, she just sort of disappeared and died very tragically young and alone and impoverished, which is way depressing. And we don't know what happened. So Ford pieces together her earlier boundary-breaking years on the front lines with like this reimagined post-war life of continued heroism, which is very well could have been what happened. I mean, we don't know, but it kind of reframes the tragedy, the very little tragic information that we do have, and gives her this amazing sort of dangerous foray into the unveiling of a Soviet spy ring in the US government during the Cold War. So it's really, I don't know, it reads like a Cold War thriller. It's a lot of fun. Jack is a New Jersey author. He is fabulous. He's touring all over the place. If anyone wants to do an event with him, give us a shout. Colony of Lost Souls. So this is, some of you may remember Kelsey James from her debut, The Woman in the Castello, which we published a couple of years ago. It was an Indie Next Pick, a library read selection. Kelsey does these, she is so good. She does these just super atmospheric, immersive historical novels. This one I love because I am a sucker for anything cults, like, yes, sign me up for cult, anything. And this one takes place in 1930s California, which is just a fabulous setting, as this woman who goes searching for her missing sister is drawn into this like dark and dangerous cult with a very charismatic, sexy leader. So it's really, I don't know, it's just lots of fun, kind of like dark sacrifice, obsession, strange rituals. It's perfect for people who loved Emma Cline's The Girls, but also if you like Sylvia Moreno Garcia, Nicola Harrison. If you are into California history, of course, it is drawn from some real California cults and set in real California locations, including like the real life utopian Crotona colony, the Blackburn cult, Crystal Cove State Park. So lots of fun real history here. It's a good one for book clubs. We've got author letter and discussion questions included. And Kelsey is also a New Jersey author who is a wonderful speaker and available for events. So give us a shout if you'd like to have her to your library. And Larissa just mentioned Ellen Marie Wiseman. I saw a couple names on here who already have read this book, including Vicki Nesting, who, thank you, you gave us such an awesome quote for the lies we told, the lies they told. Vicki from St. Charles Parish Library. I don't know how you are managing to be here on this New Jersey library presentation, but called this an unforgettable and deeply affecting story of a young German immigrant that begins with an eye-opening and horrifying experience at Ellis Island and is filled with the remarkable little-known history of American eugenics, forced sterilizations, and the government's underhanded way of obtaining people's generational homes to make way for Shenandoah National Park. So there is a lot in this novel. Basically, it takes place in rural 1930s Virginia. A young German immigrant, a mother, has come there to start a new life in the wake of World War I, which, you know, just completely impoverished the average people of Germany. And as she's trying to set up this new life, she runs into the rising popularity of the American eugenics movement, which few people realize was such a huge popular thing here. I mean, now it's like commonly associated with Hitler's final solution, but it was just wildly prevalent in the US during the first 3 decades of the 20th century. Eugenics was a household word. So many Americans were huge proponents of it. And as it turns out, it was also something that, you know, the powerful used to oppress and steal from the people who had very little. So Ellen Marie Wiseman is amazing. Her books are always great book club books. She always explores these fascinating periods of like social injustice in American history. She's so prescient. I don't know how she in early 2020, right as things closed down for the pandemic, we had just gotten ARCs for her book, The Orphan Collector, which was set during the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic. Her previous book, The Lost Girls of Willowbrook, revolved around our country's treatment of people with disabilities. And this one is just, I mean, talk about timely as our country is talking about immigration, reproductive rights, identity, equity, or not allowed to be talking about these things, but talking about them. You know, this novel looks really closely at the ways prejudice and policies of prejudice based on class and race and sex and education and physical differences were perpetuated and in the years before World War II, and how that long shadow lasts until today. So very, very prescient and timely. And I will stop speaking for a moment.
Who doesn't love historical books about tarot, insane asylums, and seances? With the entirely true story of the fantastical mesmerist Nora Gray, which I like to just call Nora Gray, feminist gothic horror writer Kathleen Kaufman presents an atmospheric and evocative tale of feminine rage set at the height of the spiritualist movement. So some people think this book is a fantasy novel, but it is not. It is a historically rich novel about how big spiritualism was at the dawn of the 20th century, and includes a dual timeline as a young woman from 1900 Scotland has ancestral powers that allow her to connect with her grandmother's spirit in 1866, for about 45 years before, when she is trapped in an insane asylum in Wales. So it's spread across all these different countries. It's also, there's some parts of the book are set in Boston. The author was inspired by her own great-grandfather, who was a traveling mesmerist himself, and he went to jail for some of the crimes he had committed during that time. And the book weaves in a lot of Celtic folklore as well. And so fans of Hester Fox, V.E. Schwab, and Sarah Penner will definitely love this book. We also have a beautiful book club kit, which is available on Edelweiss, available for the book. And we have produced some beautiful tarot cards for this book. So feel free to share the book club kit with any of your patrons, or book clubs associated with the library, or you can reach out to Madeline or myself for tarot cards or a PDF of the book club kit, which I'm going to drop some links in to the book club kit so people can take a look at it.
I don't know if I did something weird to my screen. Are you now seeing the slide with the QR code?
No, we can't see the slides. Just
No, I think it
Okay.
disappeared.
Okay, so
But
I
I
did
did
do
put the
something
book
weird
club
to my
kit.
screen.
I did put the book club kit in the link to it.
okay, thanks, Larissa.
Thank you so much. Sorry about that. Hopefully I will get it back.
No problem.
I don't know what I did. All right.
Oh, yes, now we can see it.
Awesome. Yes. So these are the tarot cards that our publicist for the book, Madeline, designed. They're amazing. She also designed the book club kit. It is so beautiful. I wish I had her artistry. So you can either use the QR code or again, like I just put the information in the chat. Yeah. So that's Nora Gray.
We
And
should be on
then-
the next slide now, right? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Blood Slaves by Marcus Redmond. I am especially excited for, mostly because I love Marcus. He is the nicest person I've ever met. I've been chatting with him a lot because he lives in California and he's been setting up some events out there and being in conversation with some local libraries out in California. So with Blood Slaves, what if no one ever freed the slaves because they freed themselves 150 years before the Civil War? So for fans of gripping horror fantasy and alternate history remixes that tackle issues of race and power, such as Victor Laval's The Ballad of Black Tom and, of course, Colson Whitehead's The Underground Railroad, Marcus Redmond's Blood Slaves is part historical drama, part supernatural horror, and part alternate history. His debut novel is a reimagining of the vampire origin story set during the early days of American slavery as the last surviving member of an ancient African vampire tribe meets a slave desperate for freedom, and together they lead an army of enslaved people in a cinematically blood-soaked battle for freedom and revenge. Cinematic for sure, because Marcus is actually an actor in LA, so he is a fantastic speaker and a fantastic writer because he's also a screenwriter too and has written several screenplays in Hollywood. He is super gung-ho to support this book, and his publicist plans on touring him, so he is more than willing to do virtual events or potentially in person. But he is great, and this cover, I'm obsessed with it.
Yeah, this book is, oh my God, this book is so good. You have to read it. Please, it's on Edelweiss. We have AirCs. Please reach out to us so we can get it to you. And it's just so much fun. I mean, talk about like wish fulfillment. And Marcus is amazing. I mean, if some of you were fans of Doogie Howser, maybe you recognize him because he was on the show.
And he was also in Fight Club.
Yeah, he's been in many things. He's like the 6 degrees of Marcus Redmond. All right, so moving over to a nonfiction read, Matisse at War by Christopher Gorham, who's a fabulous author. He wrote The Confidant, which was one of our very popular books like a couple of years ago. This one is, I love this book because it takes, kind of a well-tread subject matter, World War II history, but it gives us this fresh angle in that it zeroes in on Henri Matisse, the brilliant artist, his family, and their role in the French Resistance. Essentially, it's a great story of like courage and patriotism and political resistance, which it is an inspiring read in that way. I also really love it because as World War II began, like Henri Matisse was in his 70s. So he was like facing all these personal crises. His health was a mess. His relationship was falling apart. He was uninspired artistically. And, and his country was just descending into this like horrible period of darkness and evil. And he became completely, in many ways, inspired and charged by the resistance work that he was doing. And it turned into one of his most prolific, prodigious periods in terms of the work that he created. I love this book. Very few people know that his children, his wife, his mistress, the work that they all did in the resistance. It's like, this book, it reads like fiction. It's just, so if you are a fan of like the Flight portfolio, I kept thinking of that as I was reading this one. This is a great one for you. It's also good for people who love like, art history and sort of slice of art history. So anyone who read Picasso's War by Hugh Eakin, this is going to be good for you. Jeffrey Jackson's Paper Bullets, Taking Paris. This is it's a fascinating deep dive into the artistic context of Henri Matisse and his family and their wartime experiences. All right. And then we have some roundups for you because I guess we didn't realize how many of you would not be from New Jersey. So we thought like, okay, well, we'll focus in on our New Jersey authors. But we wanted to make sure that for those of you who are in New Jersey and in the tri-state area, that you're aware of the authors who we have coming up that live in the area and are fabulous speakers and are ready to do events. So we won't speak about these books individually, but just wanted to let you know about our nonfiction releases that are coming up.
Oh, yeah. I think we're a little bit over our time.
Sorry.
So will really quickly, we have a bunch of regional mystery authors. They're all fantastic at speaking. And all these books are either have already released or are releasing next year. Particularly Michael Falco is a fantastic speaker. We also have some regional fictional authors as well that either live in New York or New Jersey and could easily come out to an event. Some are historical fiction, gothic fiction, and some are Erewhon imprint, The Villa Once Beloved. That is a like sci-fi fantasy imprint. And then we also have, Vita, if you can go to the next page.
Kensington is home to, we've got a lot of book talk sensation authors, and we just wanted to kind of put them up there so everyone can see what we have. Harley LaRue, her dark gothic romantasy Souls trilogy, which we published in trade paperback this last year and are now reissuing in these special edition hardcovers. We also have a new hardcover queer romantasy from her coming out this fall called The House of Rain. We're the home of Emily Rath, who is known for the Jacksonville Rays hockey romances, as well as the Second Son series, which are Why Choose historical romances, and she has a fantasy series as well. Aurora Asher, Kate Stewart. If anyone wants more information about any of these authors, please give us a shout. We have some great ones sort of on the horizon: Amber Nicole, Elliot Rose, and Paula Lafferty. So please be in touch.
And of course, Kensington, we are home of Kensington Cozies, the biggest cozy program in the publishing industry. We publish roughly 75 new releases a year. I'm probably wrong about that. We probably actually have way more than that across all formats and subgenres. And every year we produce the excellent resource called the Kensington Cozies Booklet. And this is our 2025 one. And so we love to get these out to librarians. We can send you multiples that you can pass out to your patrons. If you'd like to request them, you can email me and we will send them out in bundles of 20. We have a bunch. So don't be afraid to request. If you think you're requesting too many, you probably aren't. Feel free to request whatever number you'd like. And so those are our cozy booklets.
Thank you all so much. And we went over time, so we won't chat anymore. But thank you so much and be in touch. We'll happily send you anything you're interested in.
Yes, thank you, Vita and Larissa. That was so great. There's so many things I wanted to read. And thank you again for highlighting local authors. I really appreciate that too. So I'll share the slides with everyone afterwards so people can reach out and library can really take advantage of that also. So thank you so much. And then last but not least, we have Rudy from Soho Press.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. I will be quick. I'm not going to keep you over the hour here. Let's get started. So I'm Rudy Martinez from Soho Press. I'm here to talk about a few titles from our adult imprints. That's Soho Crime, Hell's 100, and Soho Press. So let's get to it. First up, I have a funny mystery debut from University of Michigan professor Zoe Walbrook. It's called History Lessons. We're getting some really great early reader feedback on this one. In particular, we're hearing readers who are enjoying what one of them called a middleweight mystery, which I hadn't heard before, but you know, I like it. I'm going to use it. That's not quite cozy and not quite. I'm sorry, did we lose my screen? I apologize.
We haven't seen your screen just yet.
You're kidding.
I know, wait, let me add a spotlight. I'm sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay.
Okay. Yes, and I agree with Rob. We need more time for Soho. Yeah, it was up briefly and then we didn't see it.
Well, heck.
I
Let
love your
me,
background. I'm still looking at that. It's fantastic.
I wish I had the books I was talking about back here. Um, I sent you a request to share. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, let me know. There we go.
How we doing? We're back.
Yes,
Just hop
we're
in, yell
back.
at me if something goes wrong, because I'll probably
That's a
miss
great
it.
cover. So adding this to
Yeah,
my list.
love this cover, love this author. So, again, we're hearing terms thrown around like middleweight mystery, something that's not quite cozy, definitely not drenched in blood, set in a richly detailed academic setting. So, to get to it, the story follows Daphne Overture, who's a historian, kind of reserved, and she's living this quiet life that's upended by the murder of a respected, semi-famous, but very unfriendly colleague in the anthropology department, Sam Taylor. Obviously, they were never close, but Daphne gets pulled into her own investigation of his death when it becomes clear the killer thinks that she has something that belonged to Sam. Her search leads her into a collaboration with a police detective named Asma and Asma's former partner turned bookseller, which is a detail I love, Rowan. And as the danger ramps up, her interest in Rowan also begins to peak. And Daphne has no choice but to dive into the mystery with the gusto that only an academic can bring to the table. This one's for fans of Janet Ivanovich, Kelly Garrett, Ali Hazelwood. That's History Lessons by Zoe Walbrook. Next up is a mystery series debut, Mississippi Blue 42 from Eli Craner. You might recognize Eli's name from some of his pretty buzzy standalone crime novels, Don't Know Tough, Ozark Dogs, Broiler. This is a decided change in tone for him from his gritty realist bleakness. And this one is lively, funny mystery set in what I think is the very strange and thoroughly corrupt world of college football during its so-called Bagman era. This one features an FBI agent named Ray Johnson, and it kicks off a series exploring crime in the world of sports. So Ray, our protagonist, grew up on football fields alongside her father, a results-driven high school football coach, and that's exactly what's gotten her assigned to a university town in Compton, Mississippi, where a star quarterback has been fatally thrown from the roof of a college bar and onto a literal bag of money. I don't know anything about football, but I love mysteries. I love thrillers. And I would say like the sports mysteries of someone like Dick Francis or Carl Hyacint's Double Whammy. You do not need to know anything about football to enjoy this book. I think importantly, just as sort of a note about bona fides, Eli is a former college quarterback and he has a deep reverence for the game, but he is also a careful observer of life and the culture of sport in the American South. He does not avoid shining a harsh light on the injustices and outrageousness that's sort of baked into this worship of the game. That's Mississippi Blue 42 by Eli Craner. Next up, I'm only going to touch on this briefly. Clowntown from the international best-selling author of Slow Horses, McHarren. This is the 9th book in the Slough House series set in the world of MI5. It's a big piece of what's shaping up to be a really significant year for Mick, which is to say not only is there a new season of the show based on this series, Slow Horses starring Gary Oldman, coming out later this year on Apple TV Plus, but there's also going to be an adaptation of another series of his. This one's being called Down Cemetery Road, also Apple TV Plus. It's starring Emma Thompson. We're supposed to see it this year. Details on that forthcoming. You're going to be hearing a lot about Mick in 2025. You're going to have a lot of patrons asking for the latest Slough House book. Make sure that you have it ready for them. Finally, the last title from our prime list. This is one that all of us kind of collectively believe that readers are going to be buzzing about, debating, passing around. Her One Regret by Donna Freitas. You may recognize Donna as the author of another book club favorite, The 9 Lives of Rose Napolitano. Her One Regret is the story of a mother, Lucy Mendoza, who disappears from a grocery store parking lot, leaving behind her infant daughter in a shopping cart and her cell phone under a nearby car. It's the story of Lucy's best friend, Michelle, who's terrified of what horrible fate may have found her friend, but she also has a secret. Lucy's told her that she regrets becoming a mother and that she's fantasized not only about running away, but of going so far as to even fake her own kidnapping. It's also the story of Julia, a talented artist who's living in the same town where Lucy went missing, who's struggling with new motherhood and her marriage, who feels isolated, creatively empty. She's felt like she's had her personhood sort of stripped away from her, and who's now totally obsessed with what might have happened to this woman, Lucy. Did she escape the sort of burdens of everyday life, of motherhood that Julia is thinking about every day? Was she taken by someone who may still be stalking their town? This one is a true conversation starter. It's going to have readers talking about a myriad of topics: motherhood, marriage, affairs, what links we might go to preserve some idea of who we believe we are, and really a subject that our culture has deemed verboten, the possibility that a woman might regret having a child. This is going to be a big one. I hope everyone checks it out. It's Donna Friedis, Her One Regret. Now I'm going to move on to Hell's 100. This is our new horror imprint. First up, we have The Butcher's Daughter by writing duo David Demchuk and Corinne Lee Clark. This is a brooding jet black Victorian horror novel set in the 1880s, and it's told in letters between a woman confined to a convent named Margaret Evans and a young journalist named Emily Gibson. Miss Gibson believes she's corresponding with none other than Miss Lovett, the famous accomplice to the demon barber Sweeney Todd, who, of course, you know, she was known for baking people into pies, baking men into pies in particular. But the story of Margaret Evans tells in letters is an unexpected one. It's the story of a young woman, a butcher's daughter, who's been held captive by a maniacal doctor, a forbidden love, a stolen child, and finally some sweet, bloody vengeance. David's a veteran horror author. You may know him from his novel X. Corinne writes deeply researched historical fiction. I think it's a match made in hell. We love it. Victorian enthusiasts, lovers of reclamations of so-called villains are going to want to pick this one up. That's The Butcher's Daughter. Continuing with horror, I've got The Captive from Kit Burgoyne. This is the first horror novel that we're seeing from Kit, and it's a wild, genuinely funny, in kind of like a bone-dry British sort of way, supernatural horror thriller about the emergence of an ancient evil in the form of the newest born child in a British dynasty. We're pitching this one as Rosemary's Baby for our conspiratorial moment, but there are also notes of The Omen, movies like Abigail, Ready or Not, House of the Devil. This is the story of a group of semi-competent anti-capitalists who kidnap Adeline Woolsaw. She's a 23-year-old pregnant heir to the most powerful and wealthy family in Britain and the force behind one of the globe's most dominant corporations, only to realize that she has some sort of supernatural force protecting her. As it turns out, Abigail is about to give birth to a baby with supernatural powers, and for decades, her family's company, the Woolsaw Group, has been preparing the ground for their true aim, which is a new kingdom of hell on Earth that will arise with Adeline's son sitting atop its infernal throne. This one has it all. There's plague-like deadly icicles storming or raining down from the sky, swarms of deadly centipedes, firestorms, satanic rituals, and it's very funny. I think it's a fun way to talk about things like the dementing, sort of perverting nature of unfettered capitalism, and a really direct through line to some of the genre's great stories. One more and we're done. I'm going to beat this clock. Maybe not. So from our literary imprint, we've got The Stalker from Paula Boehmer. This is a novel I really love. Absolutely one of my favorites from the entire 2025 lineup that we have. I've worked with Paula for a long time. I love her work. I think this book exemplifies what she does best. She writes these strange, dark, mean characters who sort of bump up against and crash into the world around them in prose that is totally unadorned, totally unsentimental, and it makes you believe her vision entirely. We're having a lot of fun pitching this one as a dumb American Psycho and an untalented Mr. Ripley, which I think gets right at the heart of what this one is. It's about a young man named Dowdy who's moving through the 1990s in New York City inside this sort of cloud of delusion. He's wrapping himself around various women, gaslighting them, clumsily manipulating them, trying to get whatever it is he believes they might have out of them. And in particular, Dowdy latches himself onto a bartender who's very wary of him from their time knowing each other in high school in Connecticut, and a lonely book editor whose drinking has sort of worn down her defenses against his hustling courtship. This is the portrait, kind of a portrait of a psychopath as a young man, one believing himself to be both a gift and gifted, right up until the shocking, unflinchingly violent final moments of this book. It is astounding. Definitely recommend for readers of Dennis Cooper, Lynn Tillman, Mary Gateskill, obviously Bret Easton Ellis. This is The Stalker by Paula Bomer. I'm Rudy Martinez. You can email me, rmartinez@sohopress.com. If we've got galleys, I'll send them to you. Everything's on NetGalley. Everything's on Edelweiss. We're going to be at ALA. Thank you, Stephanie, for hosting us. Thank you all for being here. It was great to get a chance to talk to you.
Yes, thank you, Rudy. That was amazing. I just added like The Stalker, Her One Regret, and Mississippi Blues 42 to my list, and pretty much everything else as well. And I just want to say again, thank you to everyone. I know Rachel and Tiffany stepped out, but thank you, a belated thank you to Rachel and Tiffany, and then to Vita and Larissa, and then to Rudy. So many great books, and thank you all for being here. It was such a great time. We had a lot of fun, and we're all going to read a lot of books, so we need to circle back. I want to hear everyone's thoughts about all their favorite books lately. So thank you again.